One of the best parts of Skyrim, Oblivion, Morrowind, and really the entire Elder Scrolls series in general is the lore. And more specifically, the pieces of lore that are shrouded in mystery. The secret edges of Tamriel with great power, strange points in history that can't be explained, and events that hide a deeper meaning beneath the surface. These are the enigmas that make the series so memorable, and are a big reason why such a large community has formed around Bethesda and the Elder Scrolls. It is a series that can be played at a surface level, but only gets better and better as you peel back the layers of lore, history, and intrigue. And so today, that is exactly what we are going to do, because today I want to take a look at the 6 most interesting mysteries in all of the Elder Scrolls. Not the weirdest quests or single moments from the games, however we may dive into those in the future, but today we will look at the overarching and unexplainable phenomena and lore in all of Nirn, of which we have only seen glimpses of in the games. Because these are the oddities that inspire wonder and awe, and a love for the series that we all hold so dear. So grab a blanket and your favorite beverage and get cozy, because these are the 6 most awe-inspiring and mysterious things in the entire Elder Scrolls series. And, as always, if you disagree with my list, make sure to come tell me, oh, you hate me, over at twitch.tv/FranklyGaming. You wouldn't be the first one.
One enemy remaining.
I'm so attractive! I am so attractive, dude. So attractive! So the first thing I want to turn our attention to are the left-handed elves, also known as the Senestral Elves. The Senestral Elves hail from the land of Yakuta, for which, those of you who don't know, is the most notable landmass to the west of Tamriel, where the mainline Elder Scrolls games take place. Here's a picture of the planet Nirn where Tamriel resides, to give you a better idea of where Yakuta sits with respect to more recognizable locations. And it is in this land where we find our first big mystery in the Elder Scrolls. Because you see, Yakuta is traditionally known as the land of the Red Guards, one of the main races, and least popular, in the mainline Elder Scrolls series. They originally left their land Yakuta because it is rumored to have all sunk beneath the sea thousands of years ago. So in their plight to find a new homeland, the Red Guards settled into the familiar lands of Hammerfell to the east, which borders Skyrim and Cyrodiil from the Skyrim and Oblivion games. And with this mass migration, the Red Guards brought with them a lot of their cultures, technologies, lore, and customs. But over time, some of the history of the Red Guards has been forgotten or lost, and instead we must learn from stories and small artifacts and magics to remember the past. And one of the most interesting stories older Red Guards recount hearing from all their elders, and glimpses we can see from artifacts of the past, is the story and peoples known as the Senestral or Left-Handed Elves. In their heyday, they were the other big faction on the Yakutan landmass. The Red Guards and Senestral Elves forged strenuous relationships that eventually led to the Red Guards reportedly nearly wiping out the entire race in a final war, where the survivors were then finally killed in the sinking of Yakuta soon afterwards. The Left-Handed Elves actually got their name from the Red Guards, as they saw them as the opposite of the right way, thus naturally becoming the Left-Handed Elves instead. And as we all know, history is always written by the victors. But in their prime, the Senestral Elves had power across all of Yakuta, with great and giant cities that included buildings like the Aurealic Tower, which is said to be one of the biggest and most impressive buildings ever made in the history of Nirn itself. Their empire spanned 4 times the size of the Septon Empire, which for those of you who don't know was an empire in Tamriel that encompassed the entire continent. The elves were said to be well versed in many forms of magic, some we have never seen before, and their skin tones were darker, and they were also rumored to have very colorful hair and armor, something else we have not seen from other Mer or Elvish races on Tamriel. Yakuta, like Hammerfell, was a very arid and desert climate, and the Senestral Elves were said to be able to raise great cities from the sands within minutes with their great grasp of magic and devotion to strong gods, many reportedly Daedra, the evil gods in the Elder Scrolls series. But what makes the Senestral Elves so interesting is just how much we don't know. We don't know much about their culture, their history, or their peoples, even though they reportedly had created one of the biggest and most impressive cultures in the history of Nirn. And even more interestingly, the Senestral Elves are some of the only elves we know about that don't stem from the Altmer. And for those of you that don't know who the Altmer are, they are the original Mer or elves from which all Mer stem from in the mainline games. The Altmer originally settled the Somerset Isles, and then bands of them migrated to new areas, becoming modern-day Wood Elves, Dark Elves, and more. And those that stayed on Somerset evolved into the High Elves, or Aldmer with a D, which reportedly looked the same as Altmer with a T. So almost all elves can trace their lineage back to the Altmer, but not the Senestral Elves. They have no bloodline with the Altmer, and that makes them extremely unique and interesting. Where did they come from? How did they learn such strong magic? What kind of pacts have they made with the Daedra? And is that why they have so much power? And this leads to even more interesting speculation with the sinking of Yakuta a la Atlantis. Considering the sinking happened shortly after the defeat of the Senestral Elves at the hands of the Red Guards, and considering they were known for unknown and immensely powerful magics that could terraform entire stretches of land, is it possible that the Senestral Elves sunk Yakuta in retaliation to the defeat? And what other interesting mysteries do these elves hold? We may never know, but it is these kinds of interesting, intriguing mysteries that make the Elder Scrolls so great. So, let's take a look at another one. Next up, let's travel back into Tamriel, to its southeastern border, the Black Marsh. Because herein lies the home of the race of lizardmen we all know and love, the Argonians. And on the surface, there isn't anything too crazy about them. Sure, they are a giant race of walking, talking lizard people, but in the world of Tamriel with magic and many ancient creatures, this seems like nothing more than just par for the course. However, the more and more you dig into the Argonians and the backstory and history they have in the Black Marsh, the weirder it gets. First of all, we aren't entirely sure where the Argonians stem from, or how they came to be part of Tamriel itself. Their backstory and history is shrouded in mystery, and we only have writings and the word of the Argonians themselves to go off of. The main conclusion seems to be that the Argonians are an ancient race of giant lizards that first gained higher consciousness and the ability to speak through the Hist, a race of giant trees predominantly found in the Black Marsh, said to wield extremely powerful magics. The story goes that the ancient beast-like Argonians began to drink the sap from the Hist trees, something that can be highly toxic to other races in high doses. And through this, they started to garner higher intelligence, including the ability to speak and form more sophisticated tribes. And where this mystery gets even more interesting is the tidbits of information we do know about the Argonians and the Hist. Because on the surface, the Hist seem like majestic beings of Mother Nature that help the Argonians, but it could be much, much more sinister. For instance, we know during the Oblivion Gate crisis, the Hist put out a call to the Argonians to return to Black Marsh and defend the Hist from the coming invasion. Almost all Argonians across Tamriel heeded this call and returned to the Black Marsh to form a legendary band of elite soldiers that drove the Daedra from the land decisively. But how were the Argonians so easily controlled? And even more interestingly, how did the Hist know about the upcoming Oblivion invasion? It had long been rumored that the Hist had the ability to see the future and past, similar to the power of Elder Scrolls, something we will get into later. But this ability for the Hist to know the future, stemming from another dimension, the Oblivion Planes, implies that they are much more powerful than we originally thought. This has resulted in many wondering if the Hist are in fact enslaving the Argonians to have them do their bidding and scavenge the land of Tamriel where the Hist may not go, as they are trees and cannot walk. Was the same hiss sap that gave Argonians their next step in evolution also the same substance that doomed them to eternal enslavement? And how did a race that was so traditionally weak against other races in Tamriel suddenly gain massive strength and hold off the Oblivion invasion, arguably the best of all of Tamriel? And what are the Hist hiding from us as one of the most ancient races in all of Tamriel, stemming from before any known documents of the land? In fact, the entire region of the Black Marsh is absolutely littered with mysteries like this, as it is one of the least explored lands in Tamriel. Its road system is non-existent, its lands are covered in dense vegetation and swampland, and its people are infused with criminal behavior after years of turmoil. So the question remains, what exactly is happening in the Black Marsh? And what is the truth behind the Hist and the Argonians? Another mystery we may never know. So now let's turn our attention even further eastward, to a land that once again resides outside of Tamriel, to the distant land of Akavir. You see, Akavir is a continent that Tamriel has gone to war with before, but still one we know so little about. The landmass is said to be much larger overall than that of Tamriel, and thanks to it, it houses an astronomical assortment of weird races and advanced creature civilizations that control the land. The most notable races said to reside in Akavir are the Tang Mao, a race of civilized talking monkeys, the region of Kamal, haunted by frozen demons who thaw out once a year to attack the Tang Mao, the Kopao Toon, an empire of giant talking tigers, and Sayesi, another race of immortal vampiric serpent men, and likely the most powerful group on the continent. Overall, Akavir is essentially a giant degenerate zoo, and it's one we often hear referenced to in the Elder Scrolls games, but one that is ultimately still shrouded in so much mystery. Tamrielic expeditions to conquer parts of Akavir have been led before, specifically into the southeastern regions of the continent controlled by the Sayesi, but these invasions have been quickly threatened by bad weather conditions and prowess of the giant lizard race. However, many things have been written about the region, and they even invaded Tamriel thousands of years ago and took over massive sports of land before. At one point even, a Sayesi named Verisud Shay actually established himself as the potentate of the Cyrodiilic Empire, gaining a great influence and power over Tamriel for a long stretch of time. The questions about the land are numerous, including what exactly the demons in the Kamal are like, whether or not the Argonians in fact stem from an offset of Sayesi, and whether or not the Kopao Toon are truly trying to turn into dragons. The land of Akavir is very diverse too, just like Tamriel, and it is said to house many secrets that could help us better understand the history of Nirn itself and how all living things came to be. Other rumors point to bands of human tribes making their way to the land thousands of years ago and forming small settlements. Should we travel to Akavir, would we find ancient human tribes that have evolved totally different to those in Tamriel? And what other things would we find? As it is said that the region is home of some of the most impressive cities and structures in all of Nirn. And most interestingly of all, it is curious just how little we know about what is essentially the biggest contender on Nirn besides Tamriel. As you would think that we would understand the cultures of this land and the world more at this point. After all, they know quite a bit about Tamriel from their previous invasions. Overall, all the unexplored lands of Nirn have a lot to offer in terms of lore and new experiences. But more than any mystery that surrounds Akavir, the most enticing is how it presents answers to the ancient mysteries of Nirn itself, and gives us a glimpse of new races and experiences, the likes of which we have never seen in Tamriel. And while it remains once again unlikely that we will be traveling to Akavir anytime soon, hopefully we will have more to learn about the land and its history in upcoming games. Next up, we have a mystery many Elder Scrolls players may not know about, and that is the ancient and dominant ancestors of the Dre peoples. For those of you that don't know who the Drey are, they are a giant aquatic creature mostly found in Morrowind that is usually mild-mannered but can become aggressive in certain situations. Throughout their life cycle, they can alternate between living on land and in water, especially in seabeds, and they are sought after for their shells and wax. On their own though, the Drey are not especially interesting. They are just another cool-looking creature in Tamriel that the player might run into in battle or see off in the distance. The culture of the creatures is very territorial, and while, as I said, aggression can be seen, they usually stick to themselves and scavenge for food and land. What makes the Drey people so interesting, though, and leads to one of the biggest mysteries in all of the Elder Scrolls, is who the Drey actually stem from. You see, in some of Vivek's writings, one of the three main gods of Morrowind, he tells the story of an ancient Drey civilization, much more advanced than the current iteration, that ruled over everything under the command of Molag Bal. And no, he didn't mean everything by all of Tamriel, he meant all of Nirn. Yes, you heard that right, the entire world with which Elder Scrolls takes place. In the history of Elder Scrolls, we have heard of many powerful civilizations that had massive empires spanning the globe, but none quite like this. The ancient Drey were more than just powerful, they were all powerful. And what leads into this mystery even more is just how little we know about them. This ancient empire was reportedly much more intelligent and foreboding than current day Drow. But how on earth do we know so little about a race of creatures that apparently ruled the world literally? This leads some to wonder if these rumors are even true. But we do see just enough information that it might be on some level. Did the older Drey really rule over all of the world? Or did they just rule so tyrannically over certain parts that the local inhabitants assumed they were more powerful? What made the Drey so powerful, and how did a race of dumb creatures gain such prowess, and then, just as quickly, lose it? Why are there not more stories of these people and their civilizations, more ruins for us to explore? Are there great giant underwater city ruins? Is that where they are? And what role did Molag Bal, the Daedra, play in all of this? Was the Drow power all due to him? And this is what makes the mystery of the Drey so interesting. Ironically, how little we know about them. How is one of the most influential peoples in the entire history of Nirn forgotten? And what secrets could we learn about their ancient civilizations that could help us today? Because the idea of an older, all-powerful race that dominates for unexplained reasons and disappears just as quickly as it came is always an interesting thing that deserves further looking into. And luckily for us, the Drey aren't even the most well-known case of this in the Elder Scrolls, because that goes to our next mystery. This next Elder Scrolls mystery is one that many of you have likely heard of, and that is the story of the DWemer. The DWemer, also known as the People of the Deep, or the Deep Elves, are an extremely popular, fabled, lost, advanced civilization of Tamriel. During their reign, the DWemer were known for being a race of low conflict. They built giant, majestic underground cities that only few outsiders saw in their prime, and their technology at the time was unparalleled, mainly due to their mastery of sounds and vibrations. In their underground cities, the DWemer built giant acoustic contraptions, referred to as tonal architecture, that gave them the ability to manipulate sound to alter reality. They used this technology to terraform underground caverns, produce medicines, and by some rumors, see into the future. Even in current-day Tamriel, the technologies and cities and architecture attributed to the DWemer are far more advanced than anything we have seen from any other race. The DWemer were well ahead of their time, and their mastery of tonal architectures, as well as many other advanced forms of smithing technology, led to their ability to beat other races in conflict with ease. And this greater sense of self-worth perpetuated across all of DWemer society, as they are one of the only kingdoms ever on Tamriel that did not believe in the gods. Or more precisely, the DWemer did not believe in the gods. After all, magic and gods are very prevalent in Elder Scrolls, and the Dwemer themselves had made contact and spoken with gods. But rather, they saw themselves as equals instead of inferior. To the Dwemer, the gods were nothing special. They simply had the power that the Dwemer had yet to harness, and they were confident with how far they had come that they could quite literally continue to reach for the stars. And this resulted in one of the most interesting races in the history of Tamriel, of which now we can only see ruins scattered all over, especially in Morrowind and Skyrim. Furthermore, the Dwemer also had one of the coolest lore lines with regards to other races. For instance, the Snow Elves of Skyrim are all but wiped out by the time we find them in the mainline games. And for those of you that don't know, this is actually due to the Dwemer essentially enslaving them and turning them into the Falmer, the crazy Smeagol-like characters you see in Skyrim. The Snow Elves originally sought refuge in the Dwemer underground cities from the Nordic invaders, and in exchange, the Dwemer told them to drink from underground plants that turned them blind and transformed them into the Falmer. So questions began to pop up regarding why the Dwemer did this. Were they experimenting on the Snow Elves? Were they creating slaves? We are still not sure to this day. And that remains to show just how demonic the Dwemer can truly be with some of their deeds. And while we have learned a lot about the Deep Elves, from all the ruins they have left behind and the technology we still have yet to understand thousands of years later, the biggest mysteries about the Dwemer aren't even about their cultures or technologies. Because as cool as the Dwemer are, the most interesting thing about them is, where the hell did they go? You see, the last recorded piece of history we have about the Dwemer harkens back to the battle at Red Mountain, the giant volcano in the north of Morrowind. In this battle, the Chimer and Dwemer were in a heated war for the ages. And even with all the Dwemer's technological prowess, they could not hold back the might of the Chimer and their magic. The Dwemer were beginning to lose their footing and hold of their main stronghold near Red Mountain. In a last-ditch effort, one of their leaders did something that will go down in history. Within the deep depths of the mountain, the Dwemer had access to the heart of Lorkhan, a Daedric artifact said to possess great powers. And as Kangrak, one of the leaders of the Dwemer, saw that his people were beginning to lose to the Chimer, he used his powerful tools the Dwemer had been working on for a millennia to extract and use the heart. And in that moment, instantaneously, the entire race of Dwemer disappeared. In the midst of battle, the entire race vanished from existence, and their weapons lay dormant on the ground, and all of their ruins across all of Tamriel now laid wide open and untouched. So what exactly happened at Red Mountain? What were the technologies that the Dwemer were finally starting to harness? We know that they saw themselves equal to the gods. Did they finally find a way to transport into their realm? Or did they perish in the process, messing with magics that they did not fully understand? It is once again another mystery that we quite frankly will likely never know the answer to. But it is unequivocally one of the most interesting stories in all of the Elder Scrolls, and has caused more excitement and speculation in the community than any other mystery in the entire series. And with good reason, it's a good one. But it's not our last. And so finally, the last mystery I want to briefly take a look at is a special nod to the name of the series themselves, the Elder Scrolls. It's funny that in the games, we barely see or know anything about the Elder Scrolls themselves, considering the actual games are named after them. And this is what makes them all the more interesting. Because in the series, the Elder Scrolls are somewhat of an enigma. We know there are quite a lot. After all, many are stored in the Imperial Sanctum in Cyrodiil. But in terms of their nature and powers, we know so little. The Elder Scrolls themselves show the past and the future at the same time, and for each who wields it, the future is entirely different. On each Elder Scrolls, once an event takes place, it is inscribed and imbued onto the parchment, never changing from there. But the future is seen in a different way for each holder, and is different at different times, instead showing an amalgamation of all possible futures within the universe. In many ways, it could imply that the series itself takes place in a multiverse with parallel dimensions. But we have no idea, and it is kept vague for a reason. As more than anything else, the Elder Scrolls are used as a narrative tool, something to progress the story forward, and really are just an analogy to the player themselves and the game series. One where the player playing can forge whatever path they want. And the story is truly created step by step with emergent and fun storytelling. And while we may never know the true essence of the Elder Scrolls, we can safely say that their mystery is at the heart of Bethesda games, and is a shining beacon of what the Elder Scrolls series is. And while there is more lore regarding the Elder Scrolls, especially with stories of how they warp in and out of reality at random times, and their powers to cast powerful magics changing the world, overall, none of it matters, because the Elder Scrolls themselves are just an analogy to the series itself, and the great freedom it provides. And that is one mystery that we can solve today. So yeah, guys, those are the 6 biggest unsolved mysteries in the Elder Scrolls, based on quite a bit of research and also a lot of personal preference. But at the end of the day, the Elder Scrolls series of games are filled with intrigue and mystery, involving ancient civilizations, weird magics, and forgotten kingdoms. And it is one of the best parts of the series, and part of what makes the games live on in our imagination even years after we stop playing them. It's funny because recently I've been making a lot of Elder Scrolls videos, as I've been falling back in love with the series, just like when I first did as a kid with Oblivion. And after spending so much time thinking about the games and why I love them, I think I can definitively say that the sense of wonder you get from the worlds and the mysteries they bring forth might be the single greatest thing about them. Losing yourself in a world that gives back to you with all the time you give to it is something the series has always done extremely well. And I can't wait to see what the Elder Scrolls 6 will bring, what new mysteries will unfold, and what will stick with us for a lifetime. So thanks for watching today, guys. I really appreciate the support, and let me know down below what you guys think is the biggest mystery in Elder Scrolls, and whether or not you like these series of videos I've been doing. And if you want to support me further at all, or just like get to know me on a better basis, make sure to check me out at twitch.tv/FranklyGaming. That is my main thing I'm trying to grow, and I'd love to see you guys come say hi there. And it's really awesome to see people from my YouTube videos coming in, and it's fun discussing topics like this with you guys live. So as always, guys, I'll see you next time.